Yes, sir. We are back for a little UFC action, talking SANDHAGEN, NURMAGOMEDOV, UFC Fight Night. And I got my boy Dan with me. Dan, you remember the name?
Oh, yeah. How could I forget the name? Spiked my guy on his head.
Yes, sir.
Literally
yes, sir.
and figuratively.
Now, listen, I didn't get I'm an honest guy. I didn't get a ton right last week. But, man, it felt good to get Belal Muhammad at plus 225 right to finish off the night. Because my boy Bobby Green did not treat me good. Those were two of my biggest bets. I actually gave them out on this show. It was Bobby Green money line and Belal money line as my two favorite bets on the show. And so after that Bobby Green fiasco, I mean, like, Dan, I don't even understand. I still don't get it. Bobby Green does not shoot for takedowns in round one. I'm sorry, just and you don't do it to someone who is a jiu-jitsu guy. Like, literally, like, that's his thing, like his thing. So for him to shoot a takedown that early, and I know he, there's a little inside leg kick. He kind of like looked like he was off balance a little bit, and maybe he was like, he's this close to me, I can just shoot and I'll catch him, or something like that. But I still don't get it. Like, to right now, I'm still like, why did he shoot for, like, why? I don't understand why. I'll never understand why, to be honest with you. But that was my night.
I woke up Sunday morning. That was the first thing I thought of. I was like, why did he shoot a takedown? Makes no sense. I don't know. It could be what you said with the leg kick.
I mean, he did lose his balance. You could see it. Like, he got kicked inside. He kind of like lost his balance. And then it was kind of like they were really close. And he probably was like, I got his hips. Like, I'll get him down. He won't expect it. And I'm still just saying, why would he do it? But again, we can all say it after the fact. But literally, that's like his path is, going to the ground. And you gave him that path. Like, it's just crazy to me, but it felt better at least after that to get Belal home, which was nice. And on top of it, I forgot to mention this, but you guys made fun of me for one of my takes, which was that Bruno Brazil was on par or level, and it was a great matchup with Molly McCann. And I'll just say this forever, because I'm not saying that talent-wise they're the same or anything like that. But styles make fights all the time. And I said it, and I think I said it perfectly correct, Dan. The way Molly fights, it just fed right into what Brazil wanted to do. And she hurt her bad multiple times. And she was the rightful winner at the end of the day. So that was another one I was happy to get right, because that was a big dog too. I forget what she was, if she was like plus 2 something, maybe higher, right? Was she higher, plus 3 something? I can't remember. But
where is it?
She was higher. She was definitely higher. She was like plus 350. Yeah. Oh, 265. Okay, whatever. Either way, those were some of the takes that I got right. But Bobby definitely did not make me feel good. Dan, how was your DFS? Was your DFS any better? Because mine wasn't that great.
It was pretty typical, losing about 50%, maybe more. It wasn't a great night. Looking to bounce back this week. It's a tough one. Like last week, we had a lot of 50-50 fights, and
yes,
those can go either way.
Yeah, and we saw that. And then we saw some bigger dogs, you know what I mean? Like, then we see, like, even some of the bigger dogs ended up winning some of the crazy fights. So, it's wild. I do like the fight. Like, this fight night card, I think, is going to be better than last week's card. I think it's going to outdo. I like this fight night card. This is a good card. We got some good fights on here that we'll get into and talk about. 13 fights right now, and we'll see if anything changes. But for now, obviously, we're doing this the night before because it's an early lock tomorrow. Fights start at 12 Eastern time. So make sure you guys, obviously some of you may be on the West Coast, going to get up a little early, but lock is at 12 Eastern. So we had to get the show in, tonight instead of tomorrow morning, because that'd be kind of pushing it with, getting everything up and making sure all the content's up, and then our own lineups and everything, right, Dan? So I wanted to get the show out and go through these. Hopefully, pick some winners this week. Oh, that's the goal, anyways. So, any takes on the card overall before we get into it?
I mean, the early prelims are pretty rough. The main card is great, though. So I agree with you compared to last week on the main card. Major takes. I really like Umar this week. I really like the main event this week.
All right, well, we'll get into it. We'll get into the main event here. But let's start with the fight that, it's not really an exciting fight. We got Cedric Dumas, one of my most hated fighters by far in the UFC. 8,900 for the Reaper here on DraftKings, and he's fighting Dennis Tulan. 7,300 for Tulan, coming off of 3 straight losses for Tulan. 7,300 on DraftKings. Dumas is obviously a favorite here. Dennis Tulan's a stand-up guy, right? He wants to keep the fight on the feet. He's not particularly amazing though at all. Cedric Dumas, he can do a little bit on the ground, but he's not really that good either. Like, he's better, obviously, I think, than Tulan, but Dan, I don't really like either of these fighters, and I'm not really super high on this fight for DFS either. Like, I think Dumas could get some takedowns, but my question is more like, can he do something with the takedowns? And I don't know if he can.
Yeah, we've seen Dumas get dominant positions and be very inactive. The Brundage fight stands out in particular, but I think you have to look at the line for the fight to finish. It's -200 to finish. And Tulan, like you said, he wants to stand up. He's a brawler. He throws decent volume. He's got okay power, but his defense is practically non-existent. The wrestling and grappling, practically non-existent. There's nothing exciting about Tulan. And I think that's probably the best case for Dumas here, is just the inside the distance numbers. He should have him pretty much everywhere. I don't think Tulan has been out of a second round yet. So just based on that, my numbers really, really like Dumas for obvious reasons. Like, he's pretty heavy favorite to win. He's got nearly 50% implied odds to end inside the distance, some of the better round one odds on the slate. And he's also only 8,900. So while there isn't a lot to like about his actual fighting, his actual skills, I think this matchup, obviously I don't mind paying 8,900 for Cedric Dumas in this matchup.
Yeah, Cedric is obviously 2-2. His 2 wins were by decision. His 2 losses, one of them he got knocked out. One of them he got subbed. So, can he, that's my point, is more like, can he get a finish? We've seen him rack up control time in one of his wins. But my question is more like, can he get that finish and get that big boy score? And your numbers are obviously going to like him because of that, inside the distance, and Tulan not being able to go very deep. So that makes some sense here.
He's not an easy guy to trust, not at all.
Yeah, that's kind of my point, is I want to know what ownership's looking like, because if these guys are going to be low owned, then I can kind of be on board. If they're going to be more popular, like Dumas going to be more popular, then I'm probably going to fade. What's the number say?
Dumas is going to be slightly more popular than Tulan for obvious reasons, but so he's going to be 22. Tulan is 17. I really don't mind that ownership, to be perfectly honest. Especially for Dumas, that is the reason he's rating out so well for me, is because for his inside the distance numbers, he projects to be really low owned, but it's because of the things we talked about. It's you just can't rely on the guy. He's a knucklehead inside and outside of the cage. So I feel like you get an ownership discount. I'm really just focusing on his opponent here, Tulan. And then on the other side, he's been really, really bad. He's been terrible. But, given all the shortcomings that Dumas has, skill, mental, all that, I think he's viable, just as a low-owned sort of puncher's chance type of guy. This isn't going to be the most technical fight, but I think we could see some violence. And if the field's going to come in lower on it than they should, then I'm happy to get there, especially on the Dumas side, though.
Yeah, no, I get it being higher on the Dumas side. I mean, Dennis Tulan, you know, like for him, like he's plus 330 by KO, TKO. You know, Cedric Dumas is plus 300 on DK. So that number is not like they're pretty close there. In the stand-up, it's probably very close. I think where Dumas would have the big advantage would be on the ground, right? The submission numbers are different, plus 275. I think that's where he could win too, would be in that spot there. So if he gets a finish, I guess that would be it. So Dan, you're pretty high on Dumas. I get it. I get being high. I just can't trust. I just struggle trusting a guy like him. So, you know, I'm probably going to end up being lower than you on it, but I totally understand it. Ownership's not that bad from what you were saying. And then Tulan, I think you can get some shares of just because puncher's chance. Dumas isn't the smartest fighter. You never know. And, you know, all these fights, they stand up to start every round, right, Dan? So, you know, got the chance. But we got some people in the chat. D-Lo, what's up? Joe Ruff, Lil Trop says his first time getting in the 555, so he's going to need some help. Well, hopefully we'll get some help in there. Pure Chaos. What's going on, guys? Let's go to the next fight here. A little more confident in this one. We got Jai Herbert here versus Rolando Bedoya. Here, Jai Herbert is a minus 130 favorite coming in here. DraftKings sake, Rolando Bedoya 7,600, Herbert 8,600 on DraftKings. Start with Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert is someone who is long. He's got power, but his issue has always been volume. He's fought some pretty solid competition too recently. I know he's lost some of these fights, but you know, they're to pretty good competition for him. So I don't knock him too much for that, but I do knock the volume because the dude has power. He can be precise when he throws. He just doesn't throw enough. But I do think this is a spot at 8,600 where he has a chance to finish Rolando Bedoya. Like, I think he could put Rolando Bedoya out. He has that type of power. Problem is that if he doesn't, he's going to score you like 65, 70 in a win. Like not something you want. So I think he's a good, guy in like large field tournaments to get over on, because I highly doubt that the ownership is going to be high on someone like Jai Herbert, but maybe I'm wrong, Dan. If I am, tell me. But I like Herbert here, and I think he could get a finish. I think he could find a KO.
Yeah, Jai Herbert at 8,600 is not going to be high owned. He's going to be around like 12%, maybe lower than that. And for all the reasons you mentioned, it's he's got okay power. I mean, he more or less knocked out Ilia Topuria before getting knocked out by himself, which is a tough one. But the volume is a major problem, and especially going up against someone like Bedoya who throws a ton of volume. I just can't. I mean, I picked Bedoya because of the volume. I think Herbert is the more talented fighter overall, but I can't get behind that. I think he's okay as like a leverage play. I mean, Bedoya is going to be very popular. Bedoya is going to be about 30% owned because now he's like, I believe he's a pretty big value on the money line now because this is about even money, and
it's close.
Yeah, they're priced about 1,000 apart. So. Herbert's a pure leverage play. You sprinkle him in. If you like him to finish Bedoya like you do, then I don't mind getting there like 20-ish maybe. But more likely than not, if he wins, you're looking at like 50 or 60, and at 8,600. Yeah. I mean, that's not really going to cut it at any price on most slates. So
they could flip prices. If Jai Herbert scores 50 or 60, you're still not really getting anywhere with that. I mean, like in single entry and stuff, you'll take it in because you'll always take a win no matter what, like in those type of, because you don't really need the optimal in the higher dollar stuff as much. You can ship most of the time or have good scores without having the top, 6 normally on most weeks. But the only thing you said that makes me feel even more confident is Bedoya does throw insane volume.
Yeah.
That is going to force Jai Herbert. He's going to put the pressure on him and almost force him into possibly throwing more. And maybe that, gets us an earlier finish as opposed to a decision or something like that. So, and actually, plus 380 KO TKO, I think is a pretty nice number for Jai Herbert. I'm going to be betting some Jai Herbert plus 380 by KO TKO and take my shot here at the knockout. But I like it. I'm going to be over on Herbert. It sounds like you're going to be kind of higher on Bedoya than Herbert. What's the number saying?
Well, I have Herbert ranked really well, but again, that's like for leverage purposes. If I look at what the allocation is, it's giving me a lot of Herbert. I'm definitely going to be like tamping that down. If he's going to come in at 12%, then like, I don't even think he comes in at that, to be perfectly honest with you. I'd probably be happy having him around like 15-ish, maybe a little lower than that. Bedoya, as a chalk underdog, that's not really ever going to be my favorite spot, but like the volume is kind of undeniable. Although he doesn't really offer much in the way of like any wrestling or grappling upside. Neither of these guys really do. If anything, I'd say Herbert probably has the advantage there, but it's like very thin. So, I mean, he could get there straight on volume, but at chalk, that's not necessarily my favorite spot to get to, although he is a pretty large value. So I guess all that is to say, like, I'm not going to go out of my way to be fading him or coming in super low on him, but it's less than exciting to get to a guy like that at 30%.
This is funny because this is the exact type of spot where your numbers always say to push a guy like Herbert, over a guy like Bedoya. It's funny. You're like, I get why you're gonna tinker with it and lower it a little bit, but I do think there's upside.
Yeah, well, I'll keep the general idea. Like, I'm gonna be coming in higher on Herbert than the field. I'll probably be a bit lower than him, but like where it's at now, just doing my raw runs, it's like pretty extreme. So
yeah, I got you. All right, let's go to the next fight here on the card. Victoria Dudakova here, minus 180 favorite against Sam Hughes. I love me some Sam Hughes, a woman who's not really that great at anything except for cardio and pace and pressure, and she does that really well, I guess. So amazing cardio. Everything else is just but she knows how to use it as a weapon, and that's big. You know what I mean? She can kind of force you into gassing out. Even if she's losing, like round 1, she could lose and then just come back in rounds 2 and 3. So I always like her as a dog. It feels like she always is a dog. Like every time she fights, she's just always fighting as a dog. And Dudakova 8-0, 2 wins in the UFC, coming off a win against Jinyu Fry, a decision win where she had more volume than Fry. I will say though, like to me, Dudakova didn't look that great even in that fight. She got controlled in the second round. Like Jinyu Fry just decided to shoot instantly in the second round for a takedown, got it, and pretty much controlled her for the entire round, on her back. And she tried to throw up a submission or two Dudakova, but outside of that, like she got controlled for a round. And Jinyu Fry, like that's not really her, right? That's not really what she's doing. And then when they were on the feet, she was faster than Fry. Fry definitely had like the strength and the power. And the one thing I noticed with Dudakova, she is either in or out, Dan. She does not like to get hit. She got tagged twice from Fry where you saw her face just like she felt it and she did not like it at all. There were a couple times where they both connected and she just like made a face, whereas Fry didn't, even though they both like hit each other in the face. And I was like, yeah, she's not used to getting hit like hard in the face and stuff like that. So I think someone like Sam Hughes with pace and pressure, if she can just keep Dudakova on her back foot, kind of keep the pressure on her, and instead of Dudakova being able to just kind of bounce in and out and circle, and just kind of stick you, because she is going to be the faster striker, Dudakova. Like with her hands, she does have faster strikes. I think Sam Hughes has a chance to win in the second half of the second round, in the third round. And this could be like a split decision type of fight here. So I like Sam Hughes in a close decision. As a bet, I'm going to take her. And for DFS purposes, 8,500 for Dudakova. I'm probably not going to pay that. I don't think she's going to put out Sam Hughes. And so like Sam Hughes, 7,700. I don't really like that either, but I'll pay that over Dudakova. Maybe I'll have a little more Sam Hughes because I'm not really in on Dudakova. What about you?
Yeah, this fight's not super interesting from a DFS perspective. Like you said about Dudakova, she's not all that impressive. It's interesting. She came in as a grappler, but her wrestling seems to be pretty terrible. Like she couldn't get Jin Yu Frey down in that fight that you were talking about, which is pretty horrible. Consider like she had a pretty sizable, you would think, like strength and size advantage. Not able to get Jin Yu Frey down. Jin Yu Frey took her down and controlled her for nearly the entirety of the second round. So that's like a massive red flag. Not that Sam Hughes is, wrestling takedowns or takedown defense for that matter is really any good. But like you mentioned it before, it's like Sam Hughes, there's something about her. She's always a dog, but she always will fight hard. Like she's tenacious. She keeps coming forward. She doesn't stop. Her last fight versus Yasmin Uregi, she put up like nearly 90 strikes on her and made Uregi like really work. Like she dropped all 3 rounds. So, I'm not trying to say, anything too crazy about Sam Hughes here, but I think when it comes down to it, like I just can't, what is, let me see, what is the line here? Like minus 170 for Dudakova. I can't do that. I just don't think Dudakova is any good. And also of concern is she's had trouble making weight. I don't think she made weight this time around. Someone could correct me on that. Maybe it was her last time out, but I think she missed weight. And the last time she was supposed to fight was against Melissa Gatto in Atlantic City. And the fight was canceled during the card because of a Dudakova medical issue. So just something to keep in mind. She might not be, at the top of her health, let's say. All that to say also, though, it's actually not going to be as low owned as I thought. I'm showing like 18 and 17% for Dudakova and Hughes, respectively. I guess I kind of understand that because Dudakova does want to grapple. Hughes is not going anywhere. So I guess we could see a fight. And, Hughes, not good takedown defense, but can like get up and survive. So we could have a situation where, we have lots of grappling exchanges, some takedowns, some scrambles. And it could just be one of those super low level women's fights that like nobody wants to play. And then by the end of it, it's like smash score for one of them. So for that reason, I'm going to have some, but it actually doesn't even rate out all that well for me. And anyway, I'm going to bump it a little bit just because I think there is a little bit of wrestling and grappling upside, but not one I'm trying to get
There was
to.
a clip I saw, and I don't know how long ago this clip was. This might have been a while back, but it was of Dudakova, and someone was asking her, like, how are you going to go about attacking this fight? And she said just straight up, like, I want to stand. I think jiu-jitsu's boring. I think the crowd likes it when I stand, stuff like that. I'm not saying that, and I don't think that was before this fight, just to be clear, but that stuff's like in her mind. Now, against Jin Yu Frey, she tried to take her down early, and then it just didn't work. And then after that, she stopped. But like you said, if you can't take Jin Yu Frey down, that's a big red flag. Even though you have jiu-jitsu, if you can't get your own takedowns, then that's going to be a problem for you. You know what I mean? So I think it could be something where Sam Hughes can get her own takedowns and realize if I can just stay safe, I can kind of like really just push a pace on this girl. And when I need to take her down and control her, then get her up, push a pace, take her down, like just kind of change it up a little bit. and win a split. I do think it's not like a fight that someone's going to dominate either way. I think it's a very close fight. So, all right, I'm on the Sam Hughes side. Which side are you on? Are you on Sam Hughes for a bet or?
Yeah, I'm taking Hughes just because like that the line is too wide. I don't think Dudakova is really any good or anything special.
Love that. And D'Lo asks Jai over. Well, I don't know if he was asking, but he's maybe stating Jai over Dude in that price range. I would agree, Jai over Dudakova in that price range. They're coming in at like the same ownership, right, Dan?
Jai is coming in like significantly less. I wouldn't be surprised if Jai was like close to half of Dudakova's ownership.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean that I'm doing that for sure, D'Lo. That's me. Dan, would you do that?
Jai Herbert over Dudakova?
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's asking. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's our take there. Let's go to the next fight. Maybe one of the top fun fights of 2023 was Guram Kutateladze versus Elvis Brener. Dan, I don't know if you remember that fight, but that was his last fight where it was just an absolute banger. There's blood everywhere. I still don't understand how Elvis Brener like survived the onslaught of Guram for that like round and a half. But that was an insane fight. If you haven't seen that fight, you should go back and watch that fight because that fight was friggin' awesome. But we got Guram Kutateladze, 8,800 on DraftKings here, going up against Jordan Vucenic, 7,400 for Vucenic here on DraftKings. Vucenic, to me, Dan, he seems like a guy who, he's okay in the stand-up, but he's looking to get his jiu-jitsu on. He's looking to push you up against the cage, get you down, or find ways to the ground, and then from there, employ his jiu-jitsu and his grappling. And he's got, looks like to me, pretty good, grappling and jiu-jitsu, backpack you, all that type of stuff. So he is dangerous on the ground. Guram's definitely dangerous on the feet, as we saw. He can, he throws those elbows, those like step through, like slicing elbows too. He sliced up Elvis Brener with like just like two or three straight elbows when he was on his back. And he does it at like different angles too. He's very creative. He'll go to the body a little bit. His stand-up is definitely where he wants to be, and I think excels. Vucenic, I think, wants to be on the ground. So this is kind of a little opposite here with these guys' fighting styles. But, I mean, I think Guram comes back. I didn't love how I was saying it the whole fight when I was watching the Brener Kutateladze fight. I was like, I forget who I was watching it with, but I was saying to one of my buddies, whoever I was watching it with, I was just like, man, Guram has such a high like guard. He keeps his hands so high. His body is just like wide open. And if Elvis Brener just throws like one or two body shots, that thing's going to come down and he's going to be able to hit him right on the chin. And right before he got in close and hit him on the chin, Dan, I don't know if you remember this, but he got him with just one good shot to the body. And you saw Guram kind of like turtle back up a little bit. And I knew right then and there, I was like, oh, he got him. And then he caught him with the chin about 30 seconds later, and the fight was over. He sat him right down. So I like body work. You definitely, if you're going to stand with this dude, when he shells up, you got to use the body shots here, I think is one way to get him to lower that guard. But I think Guram's just going to be too tough in the stand-up. I don't know. It could go to the ground a little bit. If he can just stay safe on the ground, he's very dangerous on the feet, and I think he's just a little more dangerous than Vucenic. And so I'm going to go him. I think he could finish the fight, but I also think after last fight, almost kind of chasing the finish, tiring himself out, he might try and fight a little smarter. So if he does finish, I could see a late finish, Dan, like a third-round finish or a decision. So that's kind of what I'm leaning for Guram here. 8,800 on DraftKings. I'll pay the 8,800 for Guram. I'll take some shots on him. I think he's got, danger to, get a knockdown, maybe, get some points that way too. And I think on the other side, Vucenic, I at least think he has one path to being dangerous, which is the grappling. So I could play some of both of this. This is the first fight we have where I'm actually like comfortable playing both sides of the fight. I don't like Bedoya as much. I could take some shots though on Vucenic. I think Guram's going to push a pace where he's going to be forced into action at some point.
Yeah, the tough thing with Guram at his price is he's not looking to wrestle or grapple. It's just striking. So you're going to need to get there on volume. And he doesn't necessarily throw the most volume. He's also, let's see inside the distance number. He's like, what is it? Plus 230, which isn't terrible, but it's not really what you're looking for up in that range, like up at that price. So it's a little tough for me to get there. I kind of favor Vucenic as a DFS play just because, I mean, it's fun. Like you said, he's like a jiu-jitsu like grappler guy, and that is kind of super recent. It's like his last, I think, 5 fights he's won by submission. But before that, he was kind of more of a kickboxer, and you can see that in his striking and his kicks. Like he's got pretty solid technical striking. He's got awesome awesome quickness, especially with his kicks. Solid power, great movement. The defense is on point. I just, I'm always kind of hesitant on these Cage Warriors guys because level of competition is a bit of a concern. Guram has had a couple fights in the UFC. He, impressive outing, first time out against Gamrot. Drops a fight to Brener that, he was very close to getting him out of there. And then in between those, what is it? You've got, he fights Damir Ismagulov, which is a super close fight. I think you could argue, that one either way. So he's had a bit of a tough outing the last 2 times, but I agree with you. I think, he's going to be able to survive the grappling onslaught. And I think he is, stronger on the feet. I think he's also got like solid technical striking, good quickness, solid power. He mixes his strikes and targets well. But this really is a fight that, even though I like Kutateladze, I don't like him as much for DFS.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he hasn't really shown much upside, I guess, in DFS, so I get why. And Vucenic is probably a better DFS play at the price tag. I do think if he wins, though, it's he finds like a submission or something like that. I don't think he's gonna finish him, even though Dan said prior to his last couple fights he's kickboxing and stuff like that. I don't think he's gonna do it that way with Guram. Guram's fought some pretty good fighters, you know what I mean? So Elvis Brener is really good. Like that dude is tough as nails in the cage. So I mean, I can't put that, I'm not going to hold that fight against them really. He fought a war. So Vucenic, that's the biggest thing for him is like, who's he fought? This guy's fought some pretty good damn, fighters in the UFC, 3 of them, like who's Vucenic fought. So I think Vucenic's probably the better DFS play, but I'm not going to fade Guram. I think 8,800, I'm going to take some chances just because I don't like Dudakova. I'm not as high as you on Dumas, so I'm going to have to play some of these guys at the top. Like I'm going to have to take some chances on some of these guys. So I'm going to take a few chances on Guram. But let's go to the next fight here. We've got Shamil Gaziev coming back after his loss to Rosenstruck, 9,100 on DraftKings for him versus Dantel Mays. Coming off his last fight was a win, 7,100 for Dantel Mays on DraftKings. Dan, I think this is Shamil. I think Shamil comes back and puts on a pretty good performance here and gets a win. The question is, does he finish Dantel Mays? I think he could finish him, but Dantel Mays is, he's gone to the distance a bunch of times recently, win or loss, outside of knocking out Orlovsky, is 4 of his last 5 fights. He's gone to a decision win or loss. So is this a decision fight for you? Do you think Gaziev can find a finish here?
I think Gaziev finds a finish. I think he's going to have to find a finish because we saw his gas tank against Rosenstrike last time out. I mean, you've seen his cardio, his poor cardio on display a couple times now. It's really bad, man. He starts the second round and his mouth is like wide open. During the Rosenstrike fight, he like couldn't even keep his mouthpiece in his mouth. That's how much he was like, that's how heavily he was breathing from his mouth. It was ugly as shit. And then they called it because he said he couldn't see out of one of his eyes, but he was getting destroyed. And you could see that like Rosenstrike just had no fear after a certain point. It's like he respected the power at first, but then he saw that he just had like a half dead guy in front of him and just started teeing off on him. So there's not really a whole lot to like about Mays. He's kind of just a guy. He's, average to below average just about everywhere. But the one thing is he's got more than a round and a half of cardio. So if Gaziev doesn't go in there and knock him out, the tide could turn. And the thing about Mays is the way he fights is even if he wins, I don't know that he even scores all that well. So
I don't think he does in a decision score that well. So I'm with you, even if he did win, which I don't think he does.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you get like a second round finish where Gaziev is just fully gassed and Mays can just get on top of him. And it's one of those like heavyweight finishes where it's like super weak punches.
Well, if you're Mays, you've gone, 2 to 3 rounds pretty much in every single fight, right? He had to have watched that last fight and say, man, if I can get this dude past that round and a half, right, where he starts to breathe heavy,
yeah,
and then I can find a late, finish or something like that. Maybe it's a split even decision, but he does enough in like the end of the second and the third round. And who knows, what happens once it gets to the judges. So yeah, I think that's got to be his game plan, is almost like stay away from the big shot, let this dude almost tire himself out trying to, finish me, and me just, stay safe, try and, pick him apart and move around a little bit. Because he wants to use his hands. That's Dantel Mays' game, right? He's boxing. He wants to use his hands. If he can just kind of keep him, from doing too much damage early, then, who knows what happens. But me and you both have Shamil. I'm going to be playing Shamil. I'm not going to have any Mays. So if Mays, finds a knockout or something like that, that's going to probably ruin my day. But Gaziev at 9,100. I'm in on the 9,100. Gaziev, however you say his name. Dan, what are you doing? Are you going to be over on Gaziev at that price tag?
Yeah, he's only going to. I mean, I have him right now projected at 26% ownership. That's way too low for someone with his inside. He's minus 145 to win inside the distance. So, I mean, I know like heavyweights, it's always kind of like dicey, especially ones with terrible cardio, but we're shooting for upside. So if a pure upside play, Gaziev is one of the best ones on the slate. We were happy to get over on Mick Parkin last week because he was priced. He was in that same kind of range and people weren't playing him because they don't like heavyweights for good reason. But we saw how that can work out.
The problem with heavyweights, Dan, is either it goes really, really good, like Mick Parkin, or it goes like really, really bad. There's not even like a middle a lot of the time with those guys, right? You don't even get like that middle, like that 80, 88, 90 point. Like you don't get that. You only get the really fucking bad and the really fucking good. There's no middle ground with those guys. But
heavyweights are extremely tilting.
Yeah, well, that's why they're extremely tilting. But let's go to the next fight here. We got, is it Kai? Is that how you say his name? Fernandez. We'll just go with that here. Fernandez, 9,300 on DraftKings versus Muhammad Yaya, 6,900. Got the old 6,900 tag on DraftKings, coming off a loss to Trevor Peek, of all people. Trevor Peek. No technique Peek. Dan, I know Fernandez is coming off a loss too, but it was to Mark Diakiese. It was a little different. Yaya's tough, but I don't love his game. The question is more for me, how do I rank guys like Fernandez, Gaziev, you know, and other 9Ks. That's kind of like what I'm figuring out right now. Because man, if you lose to, you know, like you know, Trevor Peak and stuff like that, you're probably not the most like technical guy. You know, it's probably not it for you. And I think Fernandez is someone who, you know, I think he bounces back here. The question is, does he bounce back and get like a big win, or is it like you know, a little closer, goes to the cards type thing? So what are you doing here with 9,300 Fernandez?
Yeah, Fernandez rates out great for me for, you know, all the obvious reasons, you know, the win equity, the inside the distance number. Yaya, on the other hand, I mean, Yaya rates out pretty well for me as well, but like I've got Fernandez, I've got his projection like 3 times that of Yaya's. This Yaya guy just has like some of the worst wrestling you've seen. He got taken down 4 times by Trevor Peak, which is like a massive, massive red flag. He's got really suspect grappling defense. He's not dangerous on the mat. You know, his cardio is a problem. He's got decent durability, but his, you know, super low level resume. So like he hasn't really fought anybody too dangerous. There isn't a whole lot I like about Yaya, but Fernandez on the other side, I don't know, watching Fernandez, it makes you feel like this inside the distance number is like a little, I don't know, it seems off. Like I just don't like Fernandez. His volume is a major problem too. Like his striking volume is like, it's pretty low. He's not the most aggressive either. He's got some really like flashy finishes on the regional scene with like some really hard body kicks and some head kicks and stuff like that. But I don't think it really warrants this number. And as much as I want to be like in on this fight, I'm having a hard time. I'm not gonna like ignore my numbers too much on Fernandez, but he feels like the type of play that I get burned on a lot.
So this is like, because you're right, the volume's an issue. Now I do think he does have flashy, you know, he could get like a flashy knockout here, but man, once you get past that bonus in that round 1, if there's not enough volume or there's not like a ton of takedowns or something like that, you know, you need significant strikes, right? You need to rack up some significant strikes, a knockdown or 2, something like that. And that's what I'm playing with right now, because obviously if you like Umar for a DFS play, right? Like if you think he wins, you're probably just shoving Umar, right? So that's one 9K guy. Then you've got Fernandez or Gaziev, like one of those guys. You got Shara up there too, which we'll get to. But like in Dumas, you can throw in that category. Like I think for me as DFS plays, it would probably be like Umar, then Gaziev, then Fernandez. But I want Fernandez to honestly be 2. I don't trust the volume. I'm worried about the volume, even though I think there is a flashy knockout. There could be one, but he only gets like 90 or something like that, 95, and it's just not enough. Even though you take it, it's just not enough. So I'm kind of with you there on Fernandez. Still got him top 3. You know, those are the 3 guys I'm going to be, you know, over on in the top tier. So, you know,
on the other side, Yaya as a punt, I think is fine. Like this line, that all these numbers feel pretty wide to me. I know Yaya has looked really bad, but I believe that last fight out was his UFC debut. You know, sometimes we see people come out in their debut and they just kind of, you know, they adrenaline dump. They look like shit. And then they come out the next time and it's like, oh, like, who's this guy? Who's this girl? You know? So I wouldn't completely rule that out. Both of these guys are pretty, I mean, you know, it's like, it's low level shit. And if, you know, Yaya is going to come in at 8% owned, like I haven't projected, like it's not going to be too hard to get over on that.
I can't play Yaya with you. I get why you're going to play some of it. I just can't do it. I can't do it when you're getting taken down like that by Trevor Peak and, you know, losing like that. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. But I get what you're saying. He is cheap. All right, that's enough there with that fight. Let's go to I think will be a little bit more of a entertaining fight. We got Murzakhanov here, 8,700 for Murzakhanov versus Menifield, 7,500 for Alonzo Menifield. We all know what happened last time out with Alonzo Menifield, 7,500. We know this dude has power. We know this dude is dangerous, but his fight IQ is on a different level of horrible. Like it is that bad. And he just ran out at Carlos Oberg and got dropped, and it ended pretty fast. 7,500. He is dangerous. I don't think he's someone that you should fade or anything like that if you're making like 20 or 150, because he has the power. He's got the finishing ability to put someone out quick. But man, as a pick, I just don't trust him, and I really like this Murzakhanov. Dude, I think he's a tough out. Now he's going to come in. He's going to look smaller than Menifield for sure. Like when he's in that cage, he looks smaller than most of the guys he's fighting. But man, he's quick with his punches. He's quick. He's got a real nice jab, and I think he's going to give Menifield problems. I think he's just going to kind of in and out, just use his quickness and really just annoy Menifield into making a mistake. And then once he makes that mistake, it could be over. So I'm in on Murzakhanov. I like him here. Maybe, he's gotten his fights have all gone 3 rounds. This fight could end much quicker than that if Menifield does something stupid like he did last time out. Like that wouldn't shock me if this fight ended in under a round and a half if he does something like that. So I'm going to go Murzakhanov, and I like him for DFS here. I think he's got a path to scoring pretty good. What about you, Dan?
Yeah, this is an interesting fight, just like in general and from a DFS perspective. But I agree with a lot of the things you said. Both of these guys obviously have like insane power. You watched the Jacoby fight with Menifield, and he won that fight, even though he got like pretty massively outstruck and outworked for the majority of it. But just the couple of times that he managed to like find Jacoby's chin and knock him, like he got a couple knockdowns, I believe, that won him the fight. So when you're dealing with that kind of power, it's a dicey thing. And I think these two guys are going to kind of like, they're going to be swinging on each other, even though Menifield, my concern with him and why I ultimately am on Murzakhanov, because I went back and forth on this. I think if Menifield chose to wrestle or grapple, then that could be something. Like I think he has the advantage in both of those areas, but I don't think he's going to do either of those things. He hasn't been.
Best of luck hoping Alonzo Menifield will do what he should do, Dan.
That's pretty much the issue. Murzakhanov, though, there is a lot to like, but on the other side, he kind of he's also been losing fights early, and then he just finds that knockout. So like kind of similar guys in that respect, in that they're not really awesome minute winners, but they just have that fight changing power that can turn things on a dime. The flying knee that Murzakhanov landed on Nchukwi in his UFC debut was like, go watch that. It's like one of the most beautiful flush flying knees you'll ever see from a big man. And he sets it up beautifully. He's got like pretty good technical striking for like a bigger guy. He loves that left hand. That is like his main thing. I have in my notes, left hand to God Russian edition, because he just wings that thing out there, man. Which is a little concerning because I feel like he can get caught. All that to say, like Murzakhanov around 30%, Menifield around 20%. I don't mind getting over on both of them.
Definitely not a Derek Lewis flying knee. Definitely
that is the actual most beautiful flying knee by a big man ever.
Yeah. By the way, though, this dude Murzakhanov, it won't say it in the numbers because knockdowns. Whoever's recording knockdowns, it's the stupidest thing ever. What a knockdown actually is. He knocked down Jacoby 3 times in that fight, like 3 times. And when I say hands and knees like on the floor. Like he knocked him down 3 separate times in that fight. He only got scored 1 knockdown, obviously, but it was 3. And this dude's got power, and he'll sit you down with a jab, like just a jab, like just his jab. Like he puts it out there, and it's quick, and he steps in like he plants really hard and quick when he steps in, and he's got power. And if Menifield does something stupid and like comes at him like fast or anything like that, it could just be a jab that puts him on his back and stuff like that. So, yeah, we're both on Murzakanov, both good DFS plays. And I do like this fight.
More popular.
Yeah, me too. I'm surprised. Maybe because I'm surprised Menifield's not more popular. He's 7,500. Everyone knows he's got power, but maybe after last time, everyone's a little apprehensive of rostering Alonzo Menifield.
I was surprised by a lot of ownership this week, to be fair.
All right, let's get to the next fight. We got Joel Alvarez, 8,300 for Mr. Alvarez on DraftKings, going up against Elves Brener. We talked about him, back when we were talking about Guram, but 7,900 for Brener. I'll start it out here. I like Brener. Like, I think that this fight, I like him as a dog. I think that Joel Alvarez is a good fighter, but I also think that Brener is just an absolute dog and a warrior. And he just gets put in bad spots and finds ways out of it. And just the fact that he found a finish in that fight against Guram, just like it's crazy to me. So I'm going to take the dog here, 7,900 here for Brener. I think he bounces back off of his first loss in the UFC, and I think he finds a win. Alvarez is tough, so I'm going to play Brener for DFS for sure, because I do think he can find a finish, and it could just be one of those late, like Alvarez could even be winning early, and Brener kind of comes on after that round and a half point and finds like a late second round type finish here. So I'm going to go with that. Obviously Alvarez's only losses to Sarukian, Shakit Armenian, to put him down. But outside of that, Alvarez has been really good. He's dangerous as hell on the ground. So Brener probably won't. I don't think we'll try and mess with him on the ground. We'll probably try and keep this standing. And if he can, I think he has the advantage, Dan. So I'm going Brener here. What about you?
I'm going with Alvarez. I actually think Alvarez is he's the more dangerous. Well, not the more dangerous. He's more technical. He's better defensively. He's better at like mixing his strikes and targets on the feet. Brener does have one-shot power. So that's something you can never discount. And slightly better volume. But I do think Alvarez is the more explosive striker. And I think what it really comes down to is the grappling, where Alvarez is extremely dangerous. The majority of his wins are by submission. He's also just going to be much, much bigger than Brener. So Brener is a dog. Definitely can't discount like his toughness and tenacity, but he's going to be probably the most undersized he's ever been in a fight in the UFC. Yeah, I much prefer Alvarez on the feet. And the one thing that is problematic with Alvarez is his wrestling is non-existent. He like cannot get a takedown to save his life. So it's a little problematic for a guy whose main weapon is his submission game. But, he's like Dern, where, they're like these submission specialists who suck at wrestling, but they figure out a way to kind of like get in your face. They tie you up, they get you to the ground one way or the other, and then you're in trouble once you get down there. Alvarez is going to have like super long arms and legs that are just going to be like wrapping around Brener's neck and body. It's going to be a problem for him if and when the fight gets to the mat. But it is a close fight. You can never count Brener out. I prefer Brener when he's like a big dog. This is lined really closely. And I think maybe Brener's getting a little too much respect on the line, to be perfectly honest, just because I don't think like technically it's all there, he is, the difference between like a martial artist and a fighter. It's like he's a better fighter than he is a martial artist, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's what makes him him, though. That's like that's his, in a way, that's like one of his strengths. And I think if he goes in and tries to like out technique guys, he's gonna lose a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But that's not his game, though. He goes in and tries to just force a pressure and a pace on you to make you almost welt and at a point just break. And I keep bringing the Guram fight back up, but it's like the perfect example because I think Guram was better on the feet. I think it showed for like a round and a half, like clearly Guram was. But at a certain point, when you just keep hitting someone and they don't go down and they don't stop and quit or go out, that hurts. That can sometimes break you in a way. And I think that's what happened to Guram. Like, he's like, dude, this guy's bloody. He's bleeding everywhere. What else can I do? I've hit him with everything I've had, and he hasn't gone out. Those guys are just tough. And I think Brener's toughness is just his main weapon, but that's good in ways. I think he has to make it a dogfight. He shouldn't make it a technical thing, and he definitely shouldn't try and get this to the ground. I know he can throw his own takedowns in at times, but that should not be a game plan, which could hurt him for DFS if this fight goes to the cards. But 7,900, if he gets a finish, if either of these guys get a finish at their price tags, they're probably scoring pretty solid in DFS. So solid fight to target. You're on the Alvarez side. I'm on the Brener side. I'm going to be higher on Brener for DFS. Sounds like you'll be higher on Alvarez.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next fight here. We've got Lupy Godinez, 8K on DraftKings against Mackenzie Dern, 8,200. Dan, Mackenzie Dern, she doesn't have the full package. I can't say she has the full package for fighting, but she has the full package, like the other full package, if you know what I mean, like the full package. But this fight right here, I don't think is going to go her way. I think Lupy is going to win this fight, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. I think that as long as Lupy does not engage in the grappling and trying to take her down, and she just keeps it standing, if they fight standing for 3 rounds, Lupy is the better fighter. She is the better stand-up fighter. Mackenzie Dern is definitely the more dangerous girl on the ground. We all know this. And she is extremely dangerous. If she gets attached to you in any way, she can find a way to get it to the ground and finish you, obviously. But if Lupy's just smart, which I know sometimes, hit or miss on that stuff, but if she's smart and she just, keeps this thing standing, I think she wins a 3-round decision, 29-28. I think she's much better or better enough on the feet to, win a 3-round stand-up battle, which I think this will be. So I'm going with Lupy here, 8K on DraftKings. I actually don't love her as a DraftKings play as much because when she's scoring big in DraftKings is when she's getting takedowns and control time. And for this game plan that I think she's going to go with, because she should go with it against Mackenzie Dern, there probably won't be much takedowns or control time, even attempt, right? So if that's the case and that happens, I don't think she's scoring a massive score. Like, I think she probably scores between like 70 and 80, 85, which, Dan, I don't know. Would you take 80, 85 in a win for Lupy at 8K?
No.
So in that scenario, I'm probably just going to say, Lupy's the bet for me. And I'm not going to have much Dern at all for DFS, even though I think she's probably the better DFS play because I think she has the most finishing upside. So I hate to sound like I'm playing both sides, but Lupy's my bet. I think she wins the fight. If you're telling me which one is higher upside, though, I think it's Dern all day for DFS. So if I were to play anyone from this fight, it would be Dern, but I'm betting Lupy.
Yeah, I'm the same there. Dern, obviously world-class jiu-jitsu, zero wrestling, which we already touched on. The thing that's really worrisome in this matchup is her striking. Her striking defense specifically is just some of the worst you'll ever see. Like she had one good fight with Angela Hill where like her striking looked the best it's ever looked. And we were all like, holy shit, Dern has like added a new facet to her game. And then she fired her striking coach. And it went, I think it might have even, it might have ended up being worse than it was before. Like, it's just, it's so horrifically bad. But I think, you know, if it gets to the mat, Lupy could be in like really deep shit. We did see Lupy last time out versus Jandiroba. She didn't get submitted, which is, you know, she lost, but not being submitted by Jandiroba is kind of a feat in and of itself. Like she had her on her back for like a long time in that fight, and she was able to defend well. So I think that's definitely on the table, which is why I'm backing Lupy. Like I think Dern's best weapon. I think Lupy can defend well enough and get the fight back up to the feet, you know, kind of like get her back up. But going back to Dern's striking defense, it's like she's like a walking knockdown. Like she just, you know, she gets hit and she like, I don't know what it is. Like she gets hit and she just crumbles. She just falls down. You saw that a bunch in the Lemos fight. You saw that in the Andrade fight, especially where she got the absolute shit kicked out of her. Obviously Lupy isn't that level of striker, but I think she's good enough that it's going to cause Dern a lot of problems. And again, we touched on the wrestling. Dern's offensive wrestling is trash, and Lupy actually has some like pretty solid takedown defense. So, and yeah, as Dilo is mentioning in the chat, defended 9 takedowns against Jandiroba, which is pretty good.
Those are different takedowns than the ones Mackenzie Dern will be throwing at her too. Like much harder to defend those type of Jandiroba's takedowns. So,
absolutely,
just to throw that out.
But yeah, I mean, the thing about Dern is, you know, she can just like run up in Lupy's face, make it ugly, take her down. And like, once she gets you down there, it's very, very dicey for you. So I am not going to be fading Dern. What do I have her at? Dern, I have her projected at 24%, which is great ownership in my opinion for 8,200 Mackenzie Dern. Like for all her flaws, like she also has like early finish, you know, potential. And again, we're shooting for upside here, so probably not like obviously not like a cash game single entry type play, not the safest. But I really like Dern.
I think Lupy can stay safe enough early where it's not like an early finish either way. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Dern's definitely got the upside, I guess.
Yeah, 8,200 and 8K. It's like, you know, and again, women's MMA, where, you know, Dern has to make this fight ugly. So you could definitely see Godinez. You could see these like ugly wrestling grappling exchanges. You've got like reverses and sweeps, and maybe Lupy does, you know, she doesn't have the best ring IQ. She makes mistakes all the time. So she could take Dern down and get away with it. You don't know. Like, the women's MMA especially is just so variant that I feel like at this price and these ownerships, like I'm talking myself into getting over on this fight.
I just had flashbacks to Bobby Green trying to take Patty down as you said that. I was like, no, why'd you say that? Because now I got flashbacks of it. Oh God, please don't do that, Lupy. Don't try and be a hero and just take her down.
Rick is saying Dern went back to her striking coach. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I heard something about that. Like just recently though, Rick, I think it's like very recent. I heard. But yeah.
If she's back with Perillo, then you know that makes me like Dern even more. But I already liked her as a DFS play. So
well, she needed to go back for sure, because wherever she was at was not working. So all right. You and me are both on Lupy, I think, for the bet.
Yeah.
DFS play, you're going to be probably higher on Dern than me. I'm probably going to be lower on this fight altogether. But Lupy for both of us is the bet. Let's go to the next fight that I know everyone can't wait to talk about. Tony Ferguson, 6,700. Tony Ferguson on DraftKings. versus Michael Chiesa, 9,500 for Chiesa here on DraftKings. And Dan, I just got to ask you one question. What in the world is the reason why Michael Chiesa as a minus 700 favorite against anybody, anyone? Why? Like, I know Tony Ferguson is dust. I get it. He sucks, blah, 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 blah. I can't get on board for the minus 700. How would you bet that? Like, yeah, he could submit Tony Ferguson 100%. He's got takedowns, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going for that. Like, I'm going to take I'm going to say Tony Ferguson can do enough to where 9,500 Michael Chiesa doesn't hurt me in my DraftKings lineups. Maybe he gets a bunch of takedowns and racks up control time, but I don't know. I don't love it here. I don't love trusting that. I get that he's a massive favorite. You're probably going to be loading up on him. What do you got here for Chiesa Ferguson?
Yeah, Chiesa rates out incredibly for, again, like obvious reasons, win equity inside the distance number. But I'm with you. Like, this line is insanely wide. I don't think Michael Chiesa should be this big of a favorite over anyone, really. Especially like the way he just kind of sticks his neck out to be choked. And the way Tony Ferguson is like a really solid grappler. You know, everybody wants to say that Tony Ferguson is washed. And, you know, he's definitely up there in age. He's definitely got a lot of miles. He's taken quite a few beatings, a few life-changing beatings, you could say. But, like, I think it's very problematic that Chiesa, I mean, if you start at the striking, Ferguson's got him there. You know, he's the much better striker, better volume, more power. Just like better technically. Like Chiesa's striking is practically non-existent. Like he throws no volume, and when he does, it's not very good. His main path to victory is he wants to get you on the ground, he wants to grapple you, but it's super problematic that the main thing he wants to do is take you down to the mat and submit you, but he's super susceptible to being submitted himself. And you see it like time and again. He just like puts his neck out there. He got choked out by Vicente Luque. Like that should not be happening. Massive red flag. It's really, really hard to get behind Michael Chiesa at this price, 9,500. I don't think he finishes Tony early. Like, I don't think he's got that in him. And he's gonna, at 9,500, if he doesn't finish him early, it's gonna have to be like all control because he's not putting up striking numbers. You know, he's not gonna be pushing an insane wrestling pace. It's really, really tough.
Look at his wins where he's going 3 rounds. Like he's putting up his striking numbers are ridiculous, and these are in wins too. You're talking 47 significant strikes, 9 significant strikes. That was a while ago, but the last time he went like 3 rounds in a win, 3 rounds in a loss against Brady, 29. Like, yeah, it's going to be all takedowns and control times. So you're actually going to need Tony Ferguson to like get up, get taken back down, get up, get where he's like racking them up, Dan, on top of it, which.
Well, that's a problem too, because like Tony's get up doesn't really seem to be there at the moment. You know, he probably like Ferguson probably loses. Like, let's be real. I picked him because, you know, he's just such a big dog and he shouldn't be.
Right.
We know what's most likely to happen. I just think it's crazy that like that someone who's so like defensively void on the mat is this big of a favorite against Tony Ferguson. And I, you know, obviously understand, I believe he's lost 6 in a row, but it's all to like top tier competition. Like Michael Chiesa is out here getting choked out by, you know, it's good competition as well, but like he's getting choked out by Vicente Luque. He's getting choked out.
It's different good competition. It's different Ferguson still.
Last 7 losses: Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Beneil Dariush, Michael Chandler, Nate Diaz, Bobby Green, Paddy Pimblett. It's obviously like declining the further we go down the list, but you know, Bobby Green and Paddy Pimblett, they're both still really solid. You know, they're both really solid fighters. So
And honestly, the fact he went that long with Patty after what Patty just did to Bobby Green.
Yeah, he's not even necessarily getting dominated in these fights. He's just losing them, and
losing.
The narrative around him is, he says crazy things. He has like unorthodox training methods. People think he's like losing his mind. He's washed. He's this and that. It's like, I feel like the narrative around how terrible Tony is has gotten out of hand to the point where he's now like a plus 460 favorite, or sorry, plus 460 dog against Michael Chiesa. It's just it seems to have gotten really out of hand.
Yep, I agree, but we both agree the line too wide. We're going with Ferguson. 10-1 for the sub. I like the point you gave. I already bet it. Nice little. I always like betting those big props. So give me a little 10-1 action on the sub. Let's go to what I think should be the fight before the main fight. Davison Figueiredo 8,400 versus Marlon Vera. I don't understand how this is the third fight.
This should be a 5-round co-main.
It should be. I don't get it. But we got Figgy 8,400. I like Figgy here. 3-round fights for Marlon Vera. I hate it. Like, I hate it because he just has something where he's trying to find his rhythm, his timing, everything. And it's almost like that first round is like it's like a test round for him where what's going to happen. So Figgy doesn't have to do a ton to win that first round. And then Vera's already behind. And if Figgy can get one of rounds 2 or 3 where he can get some takedowns and control a little bit, win that way, and maybe even find a submission. I think a submission isn't crazy either for someone like Figgy. I know Marlon Vera is tough as hell, but it's a massive number. I think he's 12-1 for a submission. But I think, Davison Figueiredo finds a way to a victory here. So 8,400 on DraftKings. If he doesn't get the finish, I don't think even in a win, I don't think he's going to pay off that 8,400 in a win. But I think if he gets a finish, he can pay that off. And Marlon Vera, unless you see like a late knockout, which if he gets a late knockout, he's going to pay that off probably 7,800. But if not, and it goes to the scorecards, which Figgy's pretty tough, I don't think he pays it off either. So I'm going to bet this fight. I'm pretty heavy for Figgy. Probably going to be lower on DFS on Vera just because I got Figgy winning here, Dan. So what do you got here with this fight, Figueiredo Vera?
I have Figueiredo winning as well. I actually bet I got Figgy by sub plus 1,600 earlier in the week. That's on the same book. It's already down to like plus 700, which feels pretty fucking good. You can't eat line value, but it's not a bad place to start. Yeah, I mean, Vera dropping the first round is always a major issue, but I think one of the main things I really like about Figueiredo here is he's been coming out and he's been wrestling like very aggressively, and he's been wrestling and grappling, and I think he is the much better grappler than Vera. So given that Vera starts like pretty slow, I can see Figueiredo. I mean, like not only, taking the first round, I feel like he can lock up a first round sub just by virtue of coming out way more aggressive. Like he is in general, like the more explosive. He's got like better footwork. I just think once it gets to the mat, Figgy's gonna kind of like have his way a little bit. I might be overrating his grappling and wrestling a little bit, but Vera's a very tough sell for me, especially in a 3-round fight.
I want to know where you found 45-1 in the second round for Figgy. I found 30-1 for Figgy. I already bet that 30-1 in round 1 or round 2 by submission, and then 45-1 in round 3. Where'd you find the 45-1 in round 2? Little drop. Let me know. First round 25 if you like the first round too. But yeah, I think that all your points. Maybe I should be a little higher on Figgy for DFS just with the takedown upside, I guess. And we both think he could finish this fight. So nice. We're both on Figueiredo. Joe Ruff said, how do you feel about a fight fade? I mean, there's a path where neither of these guys get there 100%.
Yeah, they are both like, I mean, Figgy's like recent kind of more aggressive wrestling to start fights notwithstanding, like he also is pretty low volume, has been a slow starter in the past. These guys both have elite power. So it wouldn't surprise me too much to have for them to both come out a little bit more cautious and respect the power on the other side. So that's definitely a concern.
Which can lead to lower scoring, because when that's happening, they're less, they're more likely to not like try and trade off too much, and they're really trying to be in and out and, not get tagged, right? Or Figgy's just trying to set up his wrestling and Bear's trying to set up his timing, and, they stare at each other for a round maybe. Like that's a possibility too. We get out of round one and we're like, who the hell won? No one did shit, something like that. So that's why if Figgy can get the takedowns early, like you said, kind of almost lock up round one instantly if he can get some like takedown and control time. Maybe he finds a finish early. If not, though, he locks up round one and then he just needs one more round and to stay safe. Like,
yeah,
I like it. So, yeah, both are kind of slow starters, but we're both on the Figgy side. What's up?
Yeah, I have them each projected around like 25% ownership, which is like, given the numbers and the metrics and everything, is quite a bit higher than it really should be. But these are both, really big stars with huge name value on a card with not a whole lot of that. So they're going to come in a little higher than they should. I'm going to play them at a pretty moderate rate just because I believe in Figueiredo's wrestling and grappling.
Yeah, if their names were, Jai Herbert and Rolando Bedoya at this exact pricing and everything, they wouldn't, get
10%
as much. Yeah, exactly. So, all right, let's go to the final two fights. Shara back in our lives here. Magomedov, 9K for Shara, coming off of the win. I put quotation marks over win because he fence grabbed his way to a win, in my opinion. Because he would have gotten subbed in that second round against Tricoli if he didn't grab the fence. That's why he grabbed the fence. He knew he was screwed if he got to the ground. But whatever, wins that fight in the third round. And then he is fighting. This is a setup fight, like Mikhail Oli Jaychuk, 7,200, who has also been subbed in his last three losses. He's been finished by sub. Like this guy wants to come out. He wants to throw. He does have power. But, I think this was the UFC kind of handing Shara a fighter that's like, hey, listen, he's going to want to bang. You're going to want to bang. Let's see it. Let's see it. Let's see the skills now. Let's see the kicks and let's see what you got with someone who's not just, a guy who's going to try and take you down and just finish you instantly there, which, honestly, anyone who fights Shara, it's probably smart to at least attempt to take down and maybe try to get the grappling going. But I just don't think that's Alexichuk's game. Like, he's just not going to do that. I think he's going to come out. I think he's going to try and, come out swinging. And, unfortunately, it's a good matchup for Shara. I just don't like Shara, though. I'll be honest. Like, I don't like him. I don't think he's very good. I think he's definitely overhyped. Anyone who has a game plan and has even okay takedowns and decent grappling can finish Shara if they get him to the ground. So for me, I'm going to take the dog here. I'm going to go with Mikhail, 7,200. And I'm just going to go with my eyes that tell me, like, man, Tricoli took that fight kind of like stepping up on short notice, had a round and a half of gas left in him, kind of like used everything into that takedown attempt in the second round with 2.5 minutes left or whatever was left, and kind of put it all into that. Once that didn't happen, after that round, it was over. He had nothing left in the tank and he lost. But I do think Mikhail has the the power to threaten him. And, it's not like in the striking exchanges, Sharo was winning all the striking exchanges that him and Tricoli had. So I don't even know how good he is there. Like, I think he's got really good kicks, but let's see it. I want to see it against someone like Mikala. At least we've seen put dudes out, like, big guys out too with, big power. So I'm going to go him 7,200. I'm going to be way over on Mikal here, and I'm going to be fading Shara. So what do you got, Dan?
Yeah, I'm taking both sides of this fight in DFS. The headline for this fight is someone's going to die. Mikey O is going to go out there, try to take Shara's head off. That's like his only path to victory, basically, is to knock Shara out. I don't think he's going to win an extended striking battle. He's certainly not going to win any wrestling or grappling exchanges. I mean, both of these guys are just like completely void in the wrestling and grappling department, and I don't think it's really going to come into play. We talked about this with a couple of the matchups last week. Like, I think Mike O's pressure style is like pretty well suited. Like, just in general, a pressure style is usually well suited to going after someone who's got a kick heavy attack like Shara. So like on paper, this should be pretty good stylistic matchup for Mike O. The problem is he just like does not defend body shots. And that's kind of the majority of Shara's strikes. And we've seen him get hit to the body and hurt really badly. And we've seen Olashesha get hurt really badly pretty much like his last 3 times out, I believe. He's been hurt and finished. No, he beat Brundit. No, he beat Nchukwuani. That was a pretty crazy fight. But he was also losing that fight. I just think Shara hurts Olashesha early. He hurts him bad. He puts him away. As much as we want to fade Shara, I want someone who's got some grappling and wrestling, and Olashesha has none of that. He's been getting hurt. And then just some narrative stuff. Somebody shared this in the Discord earlier in the week, and I actually thought it was like a parody account, but it was like somebody asking Olashesha, like, oh, so if you lose this fight, like, what's the move? You going to go to KSW? Like, he was like, nah, man, like, I lose this fight. I'm done. Like, I'm not fighting anymore. So kind of seems like he's not fully committed. I've heard some weird things about his current training camp. Like, if you go look on his Instagram, he's just kind of like training with his friends in his garage. Seems less than ideal. But
no way that's true. No way he's just training in a garage. I don't believe it.
I mean, on the other hand, Kurt Hollabaugh is just like kind of training in a garage, and he came out and fucking whooped ass and was optimal a couple of weeks ago. So maybe the garage training, there's something to be said for it. But
interesting, Dan. The over 1.5. The under 1.5 is plus money. Mikal in his last 5 of his last 6 fights is ended in the first round, win or lose.
He's a killer be killed type of guy. He's a killer be killed type of guy. He doesn't defend well at all. So like, no. I think this is a fight you want to be really heavy on. I'm gonna have both sides pretty substantially. The ownership. I mean, Shara is projecting to come in at 44%. He always comes in high. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's 35%. And Olashesha coming in at 18. I'm happy to come in like around or over on Shara, and then Olashesha, I'm definitely trying to get over on that because he does have really solid power, and he can definitely put Shara out, I believe. But
yeah, no, this is a good DFS fight. It's my bias that won't let me click Shara, but this is definitely a fight that you want to get exposure to because someone could be going out early in this fight. Either way, so good fight for DFS. You're on Shara, right? For your winner.
Yeah.
And I'm on Mikal. All right, there we go. Let's go to the main event here. Umar Nurmagomedov, 9,200 for Umar versus Corey Sandhagen, 7K for Sandhagen. Dan, I'm going to be honest. I'm a huge Sandhagen guy. I love Corey Sandhagen. Love his fighting style. He's kind of awkward. He sets up good game plans too, in my opinion. He's used takedowns his last couple fights where he's seen an advantage and kind of stuck to that game plan and done it for 5 rounds. So we know he's got that in him. Now, obviously, he's not going to be doing that in this fight, even though, like, to counter a wrestler, you do want to have offensive takedowns. It's kind of like how Volk was countering Islam in a way. Like, that's kind of how you want to do it. So you do need to be kind of proficient in that and have that. So, you can do that if you need to, even though obviously, trying to wrestle Umar is probably not like the greatest idea, but if you can do that to then stand up, that's kind of the idea. Again, it's like how Volk used it, but I think Corey's going to be a good test for Umar. Like, obviously Umar has that path that is just undeniable, which is like he can wrestle anyone, and he's looks like he has the cardio, looks like he can go forever. All this dude does is train. Now, we haven't seen him go 5 rounds, Dan. We assume he's good to go 5 rounds. I mean, Corey Sandhagen's gone 5 rounds in like 3 or 4 of his last 5 fights. So, like, we know Corey Sandhagen can go 5 rounds. And we know Corey Sandhagen, can finish people, in different ways if need be, but he can go the full distance as well. So I think it's a good test for Nurmagomedov. Every fight starts on the feet. We saw him get dropped in the last fight. I think the key is if Corey does like drop him somehow, you just got to be careful about like rushing in. Because when you rush in, you get like, overzealous a little bit, like, because you're like, oh, I got him. And then they just grab you. And from there, he finds a way to like get you to the ground or something like that, which even when you watch his interview after that last win, I forget who it was. I think it was DC or Joe Rogan, whoever it was, asked him like, were you out or what was going on? He's like, yeah, kind of. But once I, got a hold of him and got him to the ground, I kind of woke up. And he's like, oh, so you woke up. Like, so he was definitely hurt. And someone like Corey Sandhagen, he can definitely hurt him. Like, he can definitely catch him. He's got a very awkward style to him. He's dangerous. I think he could do damage to someone like Umar if he can somewhat nullify the wrestling and get into those later rounds where it's more of a stand-up game. Because in a stand-up game, I know Umar is a good stand-up, but I would favor Corey in a stand-up. So in those later rounds, I think he would have an advantage if he could somehow nullify the wrestling. It's a big if, but man, I'm going to go with the dog here. I like the dog and Corey. I know everyone's going to be on Umar, but I'm going to take my shot. So on the dog last week, I'm going to go on the dog this week. Obviously reverse because I was on the wrestling dog last week. I'm going to be on the non-wrestler or the one I hope will stand up for 5 rounds this week. But Dan, who you got here? I'm assuming it's Umar.
I'm on Umar. Yeah. I have a slight lean on Sandhagen in the striking, but I don't think Nurmagomedov is like that far off because like Sandhagen's got him like in the volume. He's got really great movement, mixes his strikes and targets great. He's got better hands than Umar, but Umar, I mean, he's got better kicks. He's way more powerful. Like he has one-shot power that I don't think Sandhagen has. He's quicker. He's more accurate on the feet. And then, yeah, the grappling is just like Nurmagomedov's grappling is just kind of, he's got great grappling, great control. He's super dangerous on the mat. His activity, at first his activity in top position was like not that good, but it's gotten better like each and every fight. He's got elite wrestling, great control. I just think it's going to be far too much for Sandhagen to take. I think if I were to back Sandhagen, I would want him to have like what I would want to see is kind of that more like all the other skills being the same. I would want him to have more power, like what more one-shot power. We were like talking about this in the Discord, and it's like he doesn't have that like one punch put you out power. His knockouts are like these flying knees and these like long range kicks, these kind of like low probability, high risk, like flying shit that I just feel like isn't going to work on Umar. Like he's going to see it, he's going to defend it, and then Sandhagen's going to find himself in a really bad spot if he's sometimes he just falls in love with that flying knee throughout the course of a fight, and he'll just keep throwing it and throwing it. And if he does that to Umar, like I don't think that's going to go too well for him. So, the one question that we have about Umar, like you mentioned, is the cardio. Like we just don't know because like we know he can do a hard 15. We don't know if he can do a hard 25, but
he was breathing heavy as shit after that fight, after his last fight, where he did a lot of rest. Like he was breathing really heavy. Yeah, I remember that. Now, and that's not to say like he couldn't have kept going for a 4th or 5th round. I'm sure he probably could have, honestly. Like all they do is train over there. So they do nothing else. He's like, we don't play games. We just train. Like, all right, guy. Yeah, we get it. All you do is train. But yeah, I think the cardio is honestly probably not as much of a concern, even though we haven't seen it. He seems like a guy who won't have any issues, I don't think, unless he just somehow like death gasses.
Yeah, I think if Sandhagen's going to win, he's going to have to win a striking battle that goes to decision. And I don't see him being able to defend Umar's wrestling and grappling for 25 minutes. And I don't think he's going to knock him out. So
the way Corey wins would be on damage, because Corey, even though he doesn't have one punch power, he knows how to create damage. He's got those elbows, those thin elbows that just slice you. And he might win a round on a scorecard where he gets controlled for a decent amount of it, but he lands a shot in which like Umar gets cut or something like that, where
like Song Yadong style.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like that. I think that's like his path in a way is like, yeah, maybe not one punch power, but he lands some damaging stuff where, the judges just like can't not give him a round because of the damage, where Umar is, let's be honest, Umar's like really good, but I think Corey can stay safe on the ground. Like I'm not worried about Corey getting like subbed, to be honest with you. Like I think he can stay safe there. So I'm not as much worried about like the finishing upside of Umar, to be honest with you. Even though he has more power, I don't think that's going to play. Like, I don't know about you. Like,
yeah, I mean, Sandhagen's extremely durable.
Yeah.
Both of them are extremely durable. I just, that's why I think when it gets to the ground, I think the submission is going to be the way forward for Umar.
Yeah, we'll see. All
right,
I think
he has more ways to win because, like I said before, I think they are pretty comparable on the feet. They're each better in different areas, but I think Umar can hang on the feet, and I think he's got massive advantage on the ground.
To be fair, Umar's fought Boom Kelleher, Amenes, Barcelos, Alkalani, go to Corey Sandhagen now. Like Corey has fought, and I know it doesn't matter because you just can only fight who you can fight, who they put in front of you. But Corey has fought the much better competition. This is a big step up for someone like Umar. So let's see what he does. I'm not saying he can't get the takedowns. I'm sure he can get takedowns on Corey Sandhagen. But let's see what happens over 5 rounds with someone as high level as Corey Sandhagen, who is durable, who is dangerous. Even though he doesn't have that one-shot power, he is still dangerous and high level in all areas. Let's be honest. Corey Sandhagen is by far the most well-rounded fighter Umar will have fought. Definitely. Like in all areas. And that's by far. So I want to see it against someone like Corey. If he just dominates Corey, where he just wrestles him for 5 rounds and just absolutely dominates him, I'll be like, okay, this guy's probably going to wear the belt soon. You know what I mean? But
he seems legit, man. I think that is very much. I think that's very much in his future.
Yeah, I think it could be in his future, but we'll see. We'll see after this week. Dan, let's give our favorite bets of the night before we get out of here. Obviously, guys, if you want more, content, everything like that, RPS 15 is the promo code. NFL starting up. Preseason started up last night. Kicked off. We're going to have full preseason content for NFL starting obviously next week when the games start. I think Thursday they start. Multiple slates going forward. So we'll have you covered for all those slates for NFL preseason, building you up to the regular season. We got best ball content on the site. If you're looking for football, if you're looking for the MMA winners, we got the core plays, the playbook, the cheat sheet, Dan's ownership, Discord, everything like that, the betting, RPS 15. Use that promo code. You can use it for a week, a month, whatever you guys want. And obviously hit the like button on this video if you enjoyed the video. Dan, favorite bet of the night?
Tony Ferguson money line. Title run starts tomorrow for our guy.
Tony Ferguson money line. There you go. I'll go with. Wait, was it money line or by sub?
Money line.
Okay, money line. Okay.
I mean, easily.
You got balls, man. Go with Tony Ferguson sub. I mean, enough. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go Lupy because I feel pretty strongly about it. Right now, it's been moving around. I think it's like somewhere between like plus 105 and like minus 105, depending on the book you're looking at. I'm looking at DK Sportsbook right now. It's minus 102 over there. So, I like Lupy a lot here. Lupy money line. And then I think, a fun or like somewhat of a fun bet, Jai Herbert by knockout plus 380. And Davison Figueiredo, what was it? Round 2 submission, 30-1. Check that out. I think it's 30-1 over there at DK Sportsbook. So yeah, you got a fun bet, Dan? You got any other fun bets? I know you like the Figgy bet, but
yeah, I mean, I did Figgy by sub. I have a pretty big bet on Figgy. The only other thing I've bet so far, I don't know how fun it is, but I did bet the over a round and a half for Muranov Menifield.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, I like that. I mean, if Menifield can learn from anything from that last fight, maybe he should get over a round and a half. The way Muranov fights, he's definitely a more like tame, smarter fighter. Yeah. So this fight could easily go a round and a half, but it's up to Menifield more than Muranov. So yeah, I like it.
He generally tries to slow things down. So I mean, like I was watching it and I saw the number. I was like, that seems pretty low. So I hit it. I think it was like.
What's the decision prop for those guys? What's the fight to go to? Okay, plus 275 for Muranov by decision. Menifield's plus 550.
550. Okay, I gotta update my stuff. Or you're looking at DraftKings?
Yeah, I'm looking at DraftKings. Yep. So, all right, guys, that's gonna do it again. RPS 15 is the code if you want more of the MMA content or any other content. Olympics, we got it all over at Run Pure Sports. So check us out. Hit the like button on the video. For Dan and myself, JSU. Hope you guys enjoyed this show, and hopefully we got some winners coming tomorrow, 12 Eastern start time. Make sure you get those lineups in. Until then, we'll check you guys later. We're out. Peace.